Light maps can have several issues once baked, and 9 times out of 10, it's a UV mapping problem. While the automatic light map generation on import works great for most objects, sometimes you have to do it manually. The most common light map problems include overbleed from one UV shell to another, seen as a black or white strip on the edges of a UV shell. Overlapping UVs, seen as black or white spots on geometry where the opposite should be true. And bad seams, seen as kind of a jigsaw puzzle effect or harsh line where there shouldn't be one. All of these issues are solvable with better light map UVs. Let's look at an example of each. So upon baking my light maps, I noticed that in the message log here, Object 199 has overlapping UVs. So if we just click on that 199 there, it's a link, that takes us into the content browser, and I can see here which mesh has the problem. This is the ceiling mesh, and if I turn on my UV channel here, I can clearly see that these polygons, or rather, these UV coordinates are overlapping with these UV coordinates, so this has to be fixed. And so inside the scene, I can actually see this on my ceiling. We've got a black line here where that other UV coordinate is overlapping. And the other thing I noticed is there's a lot of darkness around the edges here and some darkness there. This shouldn't be here. So there's obviously some either overlapping or some light bleed. So we need to fix that. Now this is an automatically generated light map. So we're going to have to go back into 3ds Max and create our own light maps for the ceiling here to get a cleaner light map. So here in 3ds Max, we just need to bring up our unwrap modifier for the ceiling, open it up, and we'll of course need to set our channel to channel 2, and then we'll just pack all our UVs. And we're going to set our padding this time to 0.04. Give it a nice margin of error there. Okay, so now our light mapping UVs look a lot better, nothing overlapping, everything looks nice and clean, nice bit of padding around everything, and we just need to export this back out into Unreal. We have another example here of a common light mapping error, and this is a rounded organic shape. This is a flower vase here, and you can clearly see that it has seaming issues. So if we were to open this up in the static mesh editor and then show our light map UV channel, clearly this is not acceptable. And this is a result of automatic mapping. Now automatic mapping does a great job most of the time, but when it comes to really organic shapes like this and cylindrical objects, it doesn't know where to put the seams necessarily because it's obviously not a human. It can't use intuition to determine that. And this is where the human factor comes in. So we're going to have to take this into 3ds Max or whatever tool we're using and then create our own custom light map UVs. And the idea here obviously would be to have one single seam down one side and all the rest would be cylindrically mapped. So of course we just add some cylindrical mapping here. So we'll add a UV map. We'll set it to cylindrical. We'll go ahead and give it a cap. And we want to set this to map channel 2. All right, and that's going to give us a lot better of a look for our light map. We've got a good cap on the bottom. We've got a good seam along the back of the mesh. This is going to give us already a way better light map than what the automatic mapping did for this. So we'll go ahead and export this back into Unreal. We'll open it up in the static mesh editor, and we're going to go to channel 1 because that corresponds to channel 2 from 3ds Max. And there's our light map UVs. We want to make sure that this channel 1, is specified. So we'll go down to our light map coordinate index and set that to 1. And so there's our vase with the new light mapping. Looks great. Light maps can also be too low res, and simply increasing the light map resolution on each mesh will solve that. You can enable light map density in the viewport. Click on the Lit button here and go down to Optimization View Modes. Click Light Map Density. This will give you an idea of whether or not your light maps are dense enough for each object. Anything red is considered too dense, anything green is basically considered good, and blue here needs more density. Now while this is a great visualization to give you an idea of the amount of texels your light maps will take up on each object, you're still going to want to judge it by the final look. And that human intuition will come into play here. Obviously, you need to move around your level and just make sure all of the light maps look clean and they don't have any blocky appearance and whatnot. Baked GI light maps make your real-time walkthroughs look fantastic, but spending a little extra time creating custom light map UVs rather than relying on auto-generated UVs in every case will add the extra high polish to your lighting. This concludes the course. Up next, I'll offer my final thoughts and summarize the topics we've covered.